Good evening. How are you tonight? It's Wednesday, March 15th, the Ides of March. We'll get into that. Good to do some history on the old channel. How are you tonight? 9 o'clock Central Time, and you're here with me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Had some wonderful comments today on some of my stuff, and it helps. I'll tell you. We were up to 147 subscribers, which, I mean, it's great. It's great. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I keep plugging away. That's all I can say. I thought it was a good show, but some people are like, I hate you. And I'm like, okay. All right. Sorry. Anyway, it's Wednesday. So for a real estate agent, this is like start planning for the weekend. I've got showings Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays for sure this week. And then I don't know about Sunday. And if you didn't know this, it's kind of, I'll just try to share it with you. What normally happens when, at least in St. Louis, is house will go coming soon or something, probably on a Monday, with no showings. It won't go active until probably Friday. And then right now, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the showings probably they'll request highest and best offers for 10 o'clock, anytime really, on Sunday night, and then they'll make their decision on Monday. And so usually what happens is Monday you're sitting around only to get news that you didn't get the house. This happens every week when you write an offer, and it's terrible. It's strange. Like I've just gotten used to the schedule. If there is a house that doesn't go under contract, which is very rare anymore, after Monday, then you're free to show it again. You're probably not going to come in you're probably not going to come even in and asking. And but I just wanted to go over with you what's happening. I've got a really nice couple looking at a house right now, and we've been looking for the past, I'd say, month and a half. Like, they're probably some of the best buyers I've had as far as their temperament and their drive to get a house. We've looked at probably over 80 houses so far, and put in a few offers, haven't got anything. But I have gone, I save every single showing that I ever do. I don't know why. Well, I do know part of the reason why is because I want to see what it actually sells for. I mean, when I've actually been in a house and I see what it sells for, I think that's just the best data that you can ever have. And we're getting to the point now where the houses are rolling over that have sold, and they've been all above asking. And the scary thing is everything we've looked at, so we're talking 80 houses, everything is under contract currently. And that did not happen back pre-2000, I'd say pre-2019. It used to be you would go to a house, and if it was ugly, you wouldn't put an offer, okay? And then like 30 days later, while it was still sitting on the market because nobody else thought it was a nice house, then you write an offer. And that's how it was. Not that way now. Now, look, if you're a seller, that's still a great thing. If you're a seller, get the house out on the market right now. I'm going to tell you, just get it out. If you're in St. Louis, get it out. Don't hesitate. If you, like, for me, I can usually get all the marketing and everything done within 7 days and listed. The reason why I can't go faster is I don't do my own photography and I don't do my own videos. And so it takes me a little bit of time to get those people together. But we don't know how long this is going to last. We really don't know. And so we need to, if we are, and you may say, well, John, you're just trying to cause people to, what's the word I'm looking for? You're trying to create a reason to sell. Basically, you're just making it up. No, I'm really not. If you're trying to list your house, if you want to sell that thing, list it now. List it now. No question about it. And I'll figure out the word later. And when I get it, then we'll all be happy. On the buy side, if you don't have to buy a house right now, I don't know what to tell you, because what everything's coming, I mean, everything I'm seeing says that with the banks situation, like we're going to see lower interest rates, which will just screw up house prices even more. So I don't know if you're, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But if you're a buyer, yeah, it just sucks. It really does. It's not a pleasant experience. It's not enjoyable, and I don't wish it on anybody. Got a big show planned for tonight. We're going to talk about lots of stuff. I pulled up my notes because I can't always remember. We'll talk about the mortgage rate, 30-year fixed. We'll talk about the Ides of March. My mom was always big on it. She would say, be aware of the Ides of March. That's today. So we better beware, I guess. We're going to talk about just a house that I saw that came to the market today that we're going to go see on Saturday that I'm just blown away by. We're going to do some Twitter talk, some stuff I saw on Twitter that I found interesting. And then we're going to go over 3 articles. Absentee owners problematic. That comes from NBC News. A market slump and affordability still being an issue. That comes from ABC News. And then there's another small article about a CEO has said something that I've always thought to be true, but I've never been able to prove. I guess because he said it and he's in his position, that makes it more real. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is John Schenk. I am the founder and managing broker of Deerwood Realty in St. Louis, Missouri. We're a small residential firm, so small it's just me. It's just me. Yeah, I had Jan, but Jan retired, so it's just me now. And we help buyers buy homes and sellers sell theirs. At night at 9 o'clock Central Time, we do the Deerwood Realty live stream. Better or worse, we've gone against the Super Bowl at times. We've gone against the Oscars, the Academy Awards. We've gone against everybody, and they've beaten us handily. To be honest, I get most of my views on not on the live show, but actually like on the replays. And so all I can say is, hey, thank you for watching at any time. I appreciate it. But yeah, 9 o'clock. And then on the weekends, it gets a little sketchy because sometimes I get tired. Sometimes I don't feel like talking. Some days I'm showing houses and I just can't get anything put together that you guys would enjoy. And so I'm not as sure on the weekends when I would stream. I did stream. I've been on a streak. I do this, by the way, just so you know, and don't get freaked out. Oh gosh, not good. Now I got to fix something on my computer later. Not good. Okay. So I can't tell you right now because I can't get to the file. But I've been on a run. I think I've got like 7 or 8 in a row. And I did 70 live streams in a row, and then I stopped. I couldn't go anymore. And then, various things have happened since then, but right now we're good. We're good. It's I'm hoping, I'll just hear breaking news. I'm hoping to put together a daily short video based on just some news of the day. But don't quote me on that because don't hold me to it, because there's a lot to do. But I have started messing with it. So we'll just see. So I guess it's 9 minutes in. We better get to the show. I want to try to put forth a thought, okay? And then you come with me and see if you're on the same understanding as I am. Because I try to teach my kids things, but it doesn't work because they're not interested. And then I try to talk to people about things to try and understand them better myself. I feel like if I can express it verbally, then I have a good understanding of things. So let me try to explain what I see in the market as a real estate agent or broker, depending on where you're at. I'm a broker because I own my brokerage, but a broker's job is a little different than an agent's job, at least here in St. Louis. Anyway, 2019, picture this, 2019, couple buys a house. Let's just say in Baldwin, okay? And let's just say they paid $220,000 for that house. Now, I was in the real estate business in 2019, and I remember that it was, you always had multiple offers, multiple being one or two. Not multiple being one or two, that doesn't make any sense. you always had multiple. If you really wanted a house, you were going to have to be a little bit over asking, but there was going to be like 2 or 3, let's say, because then it's now you can use multiple. You just know what I'm doing. You'd have those offers on the house, and as long as you had a little bit more than the other person, you could still have inspection, you could still have appraisals. It was all about the bottom line, no problem. So it was strong. I mean, I had buyers then where they're like, I don't think we're ever going to be able to find a house. That was in 2019. But they found houses, and they're all happy. Part of it is I go through a process with my buyers that's more stringent than what you're going to get with most people. Good or bad? I don't know. Everyone seems to be happy with it. But they bought that house for $220,000. They put in a new bathroom. And they've come to market this weekend for $310,000. Now, look, the bathroom's not that nice. Okay. To me, this is the illustration not of an increase in value as much as it's a demonstration as to what inflation really is, how harmful it can be, and the threat or the problem with easy money in assets where people use them to, like, the assets that people need, like housing, automobiles, credit card debt. They don't need that, but I mean, these are the things where this rears its head. Cheap credit hurts the average person. And you say, well, it helps let's not go on that tangent. I submit to you that house is not, I mean, you're going to get $310,000 for it, but every single thing that you go to try to buy because of inflation makes that number less valuable than it was, 3 years ago. And that is inflation. As an example, when I first started the brokerage business in 2015, you go to University City and you see a $400,000 house. That was a near mansion. A few years later, $600,000. I cannot imagine. I suspect that the houses that I was involved with on the purchases on those sides are at least 7 to 750, maybe 8 now. I mean, this is not what we would want in America. Now, look, I have an assistant that works in the Philippines, and I ask her, like, how much is like $1 worth over there? And she tells me. And so let me just do this just because I got some time and you're here. Okay, so $1 in Filipino currency, they go by the peso, it's 54.92 pesos. Okay? That's crazy. I don't mean that as a negative. But what I'm trying to say is this is what's going to happen to our dollar. We're literally going to be in the situation where our dollar is just, it's just ridiculous. It's fair. Like, look, when I was a kid, my grandparents gave me $20. I was a millionaire. And now if I give a kid $20, they're like, I can't even buy Starbucks with this. I mean, that is not cool. So anyway, you get stuck as you age. You get stuck in it, and this is how to me the game is played. When I was a kid, back in 1980, all right, gasoline prices were less than $1. It was unheard of to have gasoline prices higher than $1. Okay, now that was then. I don't know during the oil crisis in 1977. I don't know what the numbers were then. I'm just saying when I grew up, I mean, more than $1 was crazy. And look at where we are now. I don't have a problem with however you want to go with that. If you want to say, it's the president's fault. If you want to say it's the government's fault. If you want to say that's no one's fault, it's just natural. You're welcome to do all those things. I'm totally okay with that. But I mean, inflation, like the idea at one point in time, like if you made 6 figures, that would be a big deal. Now you got to make like more than six figures. I mean, that number, it doesn't mean as much now. The concept of a millionaire does not mean as much now. And what I wanted to try to explain is, okay, so if I graduated college in 1995, okay, 30,000 starting, that's a monstrous number. Okay, these guys coming out of school now, their student debt is so awful, and don't get me wrong, I'm sympathetic to the student debt situation. Okay, but there's no way you're coming out of college for a $30,000 a year job and finding it pleasing. But you didn't know that just 10 years ago that would have been a wonderful number. This is a problem. The worst of the worst problem that could occur, I'm not saying it would occur, but could. The worst of the worst is if these people, everyone out there is buying a house, okay? The people that aren't at 3% mortgages, okay? They get, let's say they buy this $310,000 house. And due to the banking issues, due to all these things, somehow we actually start having value in the dollar again. There's deflation, okay? What happens then? What happens to those people? You say, well, they can refinance. Do you want to refinance on assets that they're going to do what they did in 2008? They're going to literally take the keys and they're going to mail them right to the lender. It's not a good situation. Now, you may say, John, that's never going to happen. You yourself are saying that house prices are likely to go up with lower interest rates. I know I'm saying that, and I believe that. And that's the scary part, at least here in St. Louis. I can't speak for, I see the numbers, okay? And I see what people are saying, but I'm telling you right now, where I live, it's just not that way. So, I don't have any solutions. I'm not even really trying to focus on a problem so much as I just want you to be aware of what's happening in the market that I'm in, and just understand that, like, people come to me and they say, hey, we got such a great amount of money for our house. My agent's great, and it's like, I don't know that your agent's that great right now. I mean, if every single house, if the inventory is so low that people can't buy a house, I mean, everything's sold every weekend. Is it really your agent? I mean, at this point, your agent, all they can do is bungle it, which, believe me, there's plenty of agents that can do that for you easily. So anyway, I just want you to understand, between 3 years, a house rising in price from $220 paid to coming to the market at $310 and likely getting an offer in probably $320, and that's okay. I mean, even when I was growing up, a real estate appreciates 6%. Oh yeah, where did you get that? Oh, I don't know. It just that's the way it is. Well, this is way more than 6% over 4 years. All right. Now, I might only be able to do this once. So we're going to do it. We're going to change things up a little bit. Always. All right. So like history is important, right? Like, somehow, by the way, history is written by the winners. Let's get that out of the way. Okay. But history is important, and I feel like I've kind of neglected it on the channel, and I'm sorry, but beware the Ides of March, okay? What does that mean? What is the Ides of March? I felt like, I don't know, but like, as I'm getting older, things get kind of fuzzy for me. Like, I haven't paid attention to the Ides of March now for a long time. Maybe it's different. Maybe as I see the information, I'll know it better. And so let's get to it. Here's the first article of the night. Hit some buttons. I thought we should go through a refresher. What is the Ides of March? Okay. All right. So here it is. Find out the history of the Roman calendar day. Now, my mom, she reads a lot of literature, and so I suspect that that's how she got it. But I mean, she'd say this to me when I was a kid. It didn't make any sense. Okay. It says every March 15th, which is today, The dark history behind the 74th day in the Roman calendar has led many to think of bad omens and doom, but the day has a deep history and purpose. The date has been used in a variety of media in both theater, television, and novels to betray the death of Roman general Julius Caesar. Spiritual prophecies made during this day about Caesar's death helped the Ides of March stay relevant into modern times. However, the Ides of March had a useful purpose in determining when the full moon would appear for the first time in the year, and it was an important religious date during pre-Christian Rome. So it says, what does the Ides of March mean? The Ides of March translates in Latin to Ides Martius, which means the middle of the month in March. Well, that makes sense. It does seem to be in the middle of March. It's like the 15th. The Romans commonly used these terms during this period to define certain points and numerical dates throughout the year. The Roman calendar used Ides to designate the middle of the month for May, July, and October. During the month, not only did the dates always fall on the 15th, but the full moon would also appear in the sky, which was the original use of the term Ides and the lunar origin of the Roman calendar. Using different calendars just blows my mind, you know. Sorry, a bug flew by. I freaked me out. I want to have all these lights on it. Anyway, the Ides of March. Did I do that part? No, I think I did that part. So the Romans. Oh man, I'm probably screwing this up, aren't I? No, I got it right. Sweet. The Romans did not use a typical numerical count of each day of the month. Instead, they counted from 3 fixed points during a month, which consisted of the nones, the 5th or 7th, the Ides, which was commonly the 13th except on the specific months previously mentioned, and the Kalends, which was the first of the next month. I did not know that. One of the reasons the Ides is so popular in the contemporary media and culture is because of its relation to the death of Julius Caesar. And that's how I knew it. It says the former Roman dictator was assassinated on the Ides of March in 44 BC by dozens of prominent Roman senators and even some political allies, including Brutus and Cassius. Caesar's death shocked the public and threw the Republic into a civil war that resulted in the creation of the Roman Empire, led by Caesar's heir Octavian. Historical accounts during the day Caesar was assassinated claim that before the Roman dictator met with the Senate, he was greeted by a seer, the ancient word for prophet, who told Caesar that the Ides of March was to come to warn about his impending death. Beware the Ides of March. William Shakespeare recreated this scene in his play Julius Caesar with the soothsayer uttering the famous line, "Beware the Ides of March." 4 years later, on the anniversary of Caesar's death on the Ides of March, Octavian, known at the time as Augustus, the first ruler of the Roman Empire, executed hundreds of Roman politicians and soldiers who sided with his enemy during the Civil War. And let me just point out, when people talk about war, war is not a good thing for your health. Like, we're way too nonchalant about war right now in the United States. The idea that look, Russia and Ukraine's a problem, right? Sure. But then to turn around and say, oh, well, we'll just fight them and China. I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? We don't want to die. I don't want to die. Anyway, because when you lose, it's not good. Anyway, throughout pre-Christian Roman history, the Ides of March also acted as days to celebrate Roman gods. The middle or Ides of every month of the year were used to worship the god Jupiter through a variety of celebrations that include the sacrificing of a sheep. You know, hey, it's the Ides of March, we're going to go kill a sheep. Other festivals that occurred on this date included the feast of the goddess Anna Perenna and an entire Holy Week dedicated to the deities of Cybele and Attis. There you go. There you go. Ides of March. I didn't know it was about I knew it was the 15th. I knew it was about, I didn't know the different names of the calendar. And I don't know. I just felt like it was important. We should learn. So we're going to move on now. Going to move on. All right. let me go here. This is the Deerwood Realty website. Now, look, mortgage rates are all over the place right now. This is absolutely insanity that's going on. Let's go down to where we have the survey of mortgage rates per day. And you'll see that the 30-year fixed today has gone down to 6.55%, which is 20 basis points below yesterday, which they went up yesterday. If I remember it right, it's because the banks were solved. The problem was solved. Daily things change, but anyway, yeah. I've told you that I'd like to be at 5.5%, and I'd like to never move it. I'd like it to be so that like money had value. But the problem is when you do that, then people will when you have cheap money, you do stupid things. This has been my experience throughout history. When you have cheap money, when it doesn't mean anything, people do stupid things with it. And so if you could stay at like 5.5%, people would be kind of used to that. It would cost them some money to borrow, and they wouldn't do as stupid things. Right now, there's just no value there. So, look, rates are supposed to, people are saying that rates are, experts smarter than me are saying that rates are supposed to come down. Now, if rates come down, okay, and it spurs another increase in housing, I mean, that's just going to be a disaster. Why? As a real estate agent, I want transactions. I want people to buy houses. I want people to sell houses. But affordability is an issue. And you say, well, and this is what happened. Look, I just want to make sure you understand. When the rates were 3%, it's not like you could get a house for a good price. I mean, people were bidding $150,000 over asking to get into these houses. Okay, so a $300,000 house was a $450,000 house. It wasn't like there was this great deal. Okay, people make that mistake. They're like, oh well, because I got in my house at 3.5%, I got a great deal. Well, not in the last 2 years you didn't. Maybe at the beginning you did, but not towards the end, and certainly not now. I mean, and that's the argument a lot of people are making is, look, how is it that this house that was $350,000 at 3% interest rates can still be purchased at $350,000 at 6 and 7% interest rate? That's more than double. I don't know. I just know there's a lot of buyers out there, and it's very strange. All right, here we go. We'll get to the tweet. So the first tweet I had here was from Peter Schiff. Now I did a YouTube short on this, and it was basically it was interesting to me. Okay, and I'll go. I only had like 60 seconds on the short, but just the tweet. It says, one of the many things the 2023 financial crisis has in common with the 2008 financial crisis is that the financial media had no idea that either had started. With the 2008 crisis began, the financial media was telling its audience not to worry, and they're saying the same thing again. So my question originally is, are we in a financial crisis? And the problem with that is look, you have to have some sort of definition of crisis. Is two banks in the United States failing, along with one large bank in Europe that might fail or might not? That's, they're saying that they're not going to fail now because the Central Bank of Switzerland is going to step in. Anyway, you have to define what a crisis is. I feel like we're dealing with a financial crisis, but I feel like it's inflation that's causing the problem. I cannot tell you, living in the United States, you just do not understand how evil inflation is. I mean, it's very, very bad. But anyway, so that was it. Number two, I don't watch the news anymore. Haven't watched the news for a long time. I know there's this weird thing. If somebody is an expert and they say it's true, then everybody just goes ahead and says it's true. So I can see where you would, I mean, even in 2008, people wouldn't have said that there was a crisis if they had their own house and they weren't leaving or weren't planning on moving and they didn't need a job. They were fine. And that was the third part is what would it take for you to believe that there's a financial crisis? At what moment would you say, oh my God, this is a crisis? And I say that because, these things affect people differently. If you've got a good job, if you've got a house in the 3%, if you can afford groceries, you can afford fuel, is it a bad time to be alive? I mean, relatively, not too bad. But if you don't have money for a house, if you've got credit card debt, if you are worried that your job is going to be one of the first ones gone, and inflation is eating your lunch, inflation is eating your lunch every week, then you probably think it's a financial crisis. So we have to deal with definitions. I don't know what the definition is, but I mean, gosh, it seems like there's a problem, doesn't it? Here's a tweet by Nick. I'm going to go with Garely. I don't know. I don't mean to be offensive if it's something else. I should watch he's got the #1 real estate channel on YouTube with over 3 million monthly views. I don't have the #1 real estate channel on YouTube because I don't do charts like this. It says investors are freaking out right now. U.S. Treasury yields plummeted an insane 80 basis points the last 2 days, the biggest drop in yield since 1987 flash crash, bigger than what happened after 9/11 and Lehman Brothers. Is a market collapse coming? Seems like we should pay more attention to this. It says, reason this is happening is because investors are buying up government treasuries due to their perceived safety, which pushes down their yields. Investors tend to scramble to do this in times of crisis and uncertainty, hence other events being in 1987, 2001, and 2008. There's also another big warning signs flashing. Look at oil prices, down nearly 7% so far today, and have collapsed by nearly 50% from the highs last year when Russia invaded Ukraine. Suggests collapsing demand in the economy. Number 3, how about the housing market? Mortgage applications to buy a house are down 39% year over year, nearly at the lowest level in 30 years. Full-scale collapse in mortgage origination. Now look, I feel like that's unfair. It might be true, but you've had a historic shift in the behavior of the consumer in this particular industry. And, something had to happen at some point in time. Okay, so here we go. Number 4, whether it's treasury yields, oil, or mortgages, they paint a similar picture. Big problems ahead in the economy. So yes, this could potentially be the start of a full-scale market collapse and recession. The indicators are all there except for one possibility. The treasury market right now could simply be betting on a Fed pivot. Something similar happened in the late 70s. Fed was hiking aggressively back then, and investors kept betting on rate cuts, creating huge yield volatility. Eventually, that late 70s yield volatility ended in horrific double-dip recession, where the unemployment rate spiked to nearly 11% in 1982. Excluding COVID, that was the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression. So the historical record says a market collapse is coming, but it's unclear on when. The examples of 1987 flash crash and Lehman 2008 say it's imminent, but the late 1970s say we could be at the beginning of a 3 to 4 years of melees. What will it be? Then somebody else writes, the Ray hypesters don't understand. They will say this is great for price. 71% of home purchases included mortgage, which will become hard to get soon. And then I thought I did see this one here. Watch. This guy here, he writes, you are projecting. What investors are you referring to who are freaking out? You are young and inexperienced. This is a very modest down day and extremely orderly selling. When investors freak out, it will look very different. It's like, it's bad, but it's not as bad as it could be. I do understand the young and ignorant. I do understand the young and ignorant concept. The things I know now at 45 versus what I thought I knew at 23. Wow. This is Jeff Weniger. He writes, the metrics point to job losses and rapidly declining inflation, a thread. 2 of 9. Here it says, a ton of job openings now, but the NFIB survey of small businesses tells us it goes down next, maybe sharply. Struggling companies to fire people. It's hitting tech hard. Banks make logical sense for layoffs now, given the insolvency and bank bailout of Silicon Valley Bank. Loan officers have been tightening lending standards since 2021. The latest report for the current quarter was very tight, and that was several weeks before Silicon Valley Bank ruptured. Tightening lending standards equals S&P 500 earnings declines. Fewer employees, earnings down, and now your office lease is up for renewal. What are you going to do? You lease space for 100 cubicles, but 10 workers show up on Fridays. Yes, we will renew, but cut the price and cut the square footage, which means there's vacancies. Also, money supply growth is negative. Home sellers can't leave their 3% mortgage to take on a 6.73% mortgage. Buyers can't do it either. Maybe mortgage lending standards get strict too, now that we have the SVB fiasco. Now, it says housing-related careers have a tough battle. People who lose their job go delinquent. Now, look, I'm in real estate. You would suspect that I'm going to get hammered. I'm not going to get hammered. Just telling you that right now. I was through the great 2008 issue, and I understand it. All it means is I don't get to spend money like a drunken sailor, okay? All it means is all the money I bring in, I have to keep, I have to hold. And you may say, well, John, that's a dumb idea to hold that money given that inflation is eating away at that dollar every day. I hear you. But I've learned in business that cash is king, okay? Of all else, cash is king, and it will get you through any problem. Cash, not credit, not lines of credit. Those are dangerous. But he's bringing something. Look, here's one of my concerns. If you got a mortgage at 3% and you bought the best house you maxed out, okay, you bought the biggest and best house you possibly could, and you're at 3%. And now what happens if you lose your job and can't afford the payments on a 3% mortgage? Oh my God, you got a double whammy. Because if you do lose your house, you're not going anywhere better for sure. And I mean, even if you refinance, how are you going to refinance it below 3%? Like, how is the government going to step in and fix that one? I'm sure they'll try, but my gosh, you got a problem. CPI is 6% year over year. Few seers think it can get below the Fed's 2% target. Yet job losses, recession, depression, office real estate, housing recession, negative money supply, skittish planks. This is disinflationary, not inflationary. I want to thank those of you who followed 2021 when I was warning about inflation, but the economic cycle has progressed. It's at the end of the cycle, the liquidation phase, liquidation of houses, office, story stocks, jobs, and disinflation. I mean, look, I don't have the artistry or the ability to write tweets and have graphs, but this is what I'm thinking. Darth Powell says, we have more homes to population than any time in history, the worst working age demographics in history, and the most homes under construction in history. He has this graph. This isn't good, by the way. This is this whole concept of absentee home ownership or absentee shadow inventory that I remember during 2008, and I feel like it exists now, but I can't prove it. It says, then somebody writes, what do you think, or why do you think prices haven't adjusted downward yet? Aside from Fed manipulation, really curious given the data, yet prices are still very high. When you look at wages, salaries, inflation, interest rates, thanks. And he says this is a very slow moving ship. And this is what I've been saying in my own talks. I mean, my lender and I sit there and we're watching or have been watching people with $1,500 a month car payments, $2,000 a month car payments for 7 years. And then they want to get a mortgage and my lender's like, no, I can't, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do for you. And we're like, this can't. And then we're going out and looking at houses, and it's like, you know, the lender needs to know, like, say the lender gives you a pre-approval for $300,000, and you go to a house and it's for $300,000, and you know there's going to be 5 other people bidding. Well, you're not going to be at $300,000 on the asking price. So you go back to the lender and you say, hey, can you do the numbers again and see if we can get 310, 320? And then they say, well, let's look. And then they come back with an answer. So the lender is in on this, okay? And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, at least they're trying to get a deal done for the buyer. But we're looking at this stuff, and it's like, why is nobody saying anything? I mean, like I've told you, I want a used car. We have 1 car as a family right now. That's not really true. We have 2, but the daughter has 1. But anyway, we would like another car. I refuse to buy a used car right now. I just refuse. I mean, I'm not spending more than $20,000 on a 10-year-old car. Okay? It's just not going to happen. I think that's insane. And then to look at a new car, well, let's just look at trucks. Okay? When I was a kid, I hate to say it, $20,000 on a truck, brand new truck, that was living large. Living large. Now you go look at the cheapest truck you can buy in America. I have a friend that just bought a truck, the one step up on a Chevy with a 4-cylinder engine, 40 some odd thousand. With an 8-cylinder or diesel, you're looking at $80,000 for a pickup truck. I mean, come on. I mean, this is going to affect your insurance rates, property tax. I mean, that's the other thing. That's what we were talking about with my lender. You know, all of your property tax is based on like what was received now. Okay. And if you happen to be one of those unfortunate souls that lived in a neighborhood where the price went from $200,000 to $350,000 in the span of a year, you haven't even gotten the updated property tax bill. Because at least in Missouri, the St. Louis side, okay, it's every 2 years. So the assessment's every 2 years, or the change. I mean, if you think that number's not going to blow people away, okay, it's really going to cause problems. But these are things that take time. Like I said, 2 years for a reassessment. So, not great. Not great. And I do believe it's a slow-moving ship. This thing, and when it, like we've all, like I've also been saying, we're all looking for this one moment to say, you know, hey, here it is. Peter Schiff, the financial crisis has begun. I don't know if it has or not. You know, I just know that things are wild. We would have thought that the Silicon Valley Bank was that moment, but the speed in which the government stepped in to guarantee deposits, which I'm not interested in the should they have or shouldn't they have. They did, you know? And so it's like, man, maybe that wasn't the issue, but now we got Credit Suisse, one of the largest banks in the world, seemingly having problems. But this has been rumored. This isn't news, really. I mean, this has been rumored for, 6 months, 8 months, a year maybe. I've heard Credit Suisse's name. So anyway, housing bubble disrespecter with this tweet, it says, POV homebuyers seeing rates drop after the bank collapse. And it's like, it's like, it's true. I mean, my buyers right now probably buy a $250,000 house, rates drop in half there to $500,000 house. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then it says, yeah, but lending standards get tighter and becomes next to impossible to get approved unless you have top tier credit. Well, I don't know if that person knows, but it's hard to get a loan right now. The underwriting is pretty intense. As someone I've listed a few houses where the original buyer was pre-approved, but the deal fell down over their own financing. So to me, that seems to indicate that there's pretty decent underwriting going on. Amy Nixon, I thought this was really something. She's really, if you are on Twitter, follow her. She's really on it. says the number of residential properties in the process of foreclosure is up 5% from Q4 and nearly 30% year over year. It's mind-blowing that after housing appreciated 40% in 2 years, that there's any homes in foreclosure. And it shows how ridiculous our casino housing market has gotten. And so yes. And this is with record low unemployment. Everybody has a job or two and gained massive home equity. And yet we're still seeing an increase in the number of people in foreclosure. And it says, up from a very low base, how does the current level compare to long-term trend? It's low, but like I said, we're coming out of a foreclosure moratorium and homeowners have had record equity in a strong labor market. It's pretty shocking that there's any distress at all. And that's it. That's true. My God, to have, like, if, say you were a little old lady, okay? I don't mean to be sexist or ageist, but you're a little old lady and you're on a fixed income, okay? And you've kept your house nice. You haven't done anything different, maybe you did a kitchen remodel, maybe, 10 years ago, maybe did a bathroom remodel 5 years ago. Your house is in a nice neighborhood and it's nice. Let's just say, you bought the house and it was like $50,000, okay? You've long paid off your mortgage, okay? Now you're sitting in the house and you just watched your house value go from, say, $150,000 to $300,000, $150,000, and you did nothing to the house, okay? Now, if you were having problems, God forbid, and I don't want that to happen to anyone, you could refinance the damn thing, cash out, and you'd be in a fantastic shape. There'd be no reason for a foreclosure. And that's the frightening part. The idea that there's people in foreclosure right now, this after all the other things. I got the bug. Thank you. It was bugging me. Playing words. The idea that you can be in a foreclosure situation now after equity has gone so much higher is just embarrassing, sad, frustrating. And should we get a wave of foreclosures, that takes out your construction industry, which isn't great. I'm just saying. Markets and mayhem. I'm trying to get a little better with my working on the computer. So Marcus and Mayhem says there could be more issues ahead for the banking sector. That's according to J.P. Morgan. But I found this clip, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I'll try to be quiet. But Joe Biden just told me on Monday morning that things are going to be fine.
Before I leave for California, I want to briefly speak about what's happening at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them.
Okay, so first off the bat, 20 seconds in, Joe Biden did not know he was a banker. The American banking system's safe. This is why people lose confidence in the government. You can't have one group saying, hey, things are, about ready to fall off a cliff, and then someone else say, oh, no, everything's fine. Everything's great. We fixed it. Housing bubble disrespecter. This has always been funny. Buy now or be priced out forever. And then when you go to sell, it's worth what we were willing to pay for it. This is the problem. This is the problem. And then it used to be a rate chart and everything. And it's just, ugh. Oh, here we go. Finally, create a sense of urgency. That was from the first 5 minutes of the show today. It's people accuse real estate agents all the time of trying to create a sense of urgency. And so when I'm saying you need to put your house on the market tomorrow, that's creating a sense of urgency. But I don't mean it that way. I'm trying to tell you, like, look, in St. Louis right now, put your house on the market because people are still out there trying to buy aggressively. Literally 80 to 90 houses that I showed my buyers are right now under contract, and there's not one of them that's not under contract. That's a strong market. It's not a good thing necessarily, but it is strong. So, this is buy now or be priced out forever is a concept of creating urgency in a situation that maybe doesn't warrant it. As a buyer, that's you could tell that's buyers like, look, you should buy now, or else things can go south. And it's like, no, I wouldn't tell my buyers that. If you have to buy a house, the buyers that I have very reasonable reasons to buy a home. They're not speculators. They just want a place to live. They just want shelter, and they don't want to pay. House or apartment rents are just ridiculous. They've raised at the same rates. That's why I think it's inflation. But anyway, this was interesting. And then I wanted to go through this one real quick because I don't know, it spoke to me. He says, I talk to many people, and you'll be amazed at how many people want the system to collapse. It's frightening. What have they done to people in the last 3 years? Where's the 90s optimism? Everything they did was to boost the 1% and suppress the population. Nature will react sad. Well, he's got it at the end. He's got it at the end. Our government flat out lied to us on numerous occasions. And then they want us to be happy. I mean, you look back on the Iraq War, okay? That was for me a moment that was like, wait a minute, who's the bad guys here? Then you had Lebanon. Then you had Syria. Then you had Afghanistan. Okay? Then you bring in the pandemic. I mean, and then you have these daily occurrences where a government official says things are fine, and they're not fine. And they're not even close to fine. Eric Weinstein says that the institutions are corrupt and they're irredeemable, and the people that built this country aren't around now to fix it when it breaks. And in my lifetime, I have seen, there are things that I've seen that I can't even believe. Like, for instance, power outages, blackouts, rolling blackouts are acceptable in California now. We've had power, Texas had no power last year during the winter. What the hell? I mean, it's simple things also, like nuclear power, the technology behind it now, much safer, much better. We could have cheap, reliable energy. But yet there's this resistance, and there's this resistance from people that either don't understand the science, which has also been politicized, but they don't want nuclear. They want wind farms that kill eagles, and it's just like or solar arrays that just look terrible on the landscape. There's no optimism right now. And it's because of the lies. It's because of lies. And it can, like, from what I've understood now, like when Jimmy Carter went out of office and Reagan came in, they said that the economy just like turned on a dime, and that people's, mental stability got better. Basically, there was optimism. I've always thought that as a politician, if you could sell optimism, it's contagious. But it's hard. It's hard to sell optimism when you're just lying. I think genuine optimism is infectious, but this fake, and demonstrably so, that we've seen for the past 20 years. Like, I'm just telling you, the quality of my life is not better now than it was 20 years ago. Is that my fault? Maybe. So I don't see the optimism. How can you have optimism in this environment? It's just crazy. This is the last thing I have for the tweets tonight. Darth Powell again, the Federal Reserve trying to fix 40 years of Ponzi schemes. Yes, manipulative Ponzi schemes by the Fed has been that way for a long time. Not right. Not good. Good luck fixing it. I mean, the market rallied because the Fed was going to have to cut rates. That's not the pivot. They're only cutting rates when they think things are screwed. Not a good situation. Okay, let's get into the last part of our show tonight. It's gone fast for me. Let's get going to that then. I just want to check the time, just make sure I'm not going too long. Okay, so this is from NBC. This was from a while ago. Let me get a drink. It says, absentee owners are crowding the housing market, data shows. The share of homes sold to absentee owners has increased since 2020 across 9 major metro areas, and NBC News analysis of real estate data found. Now, I'm not going to kick NBC and their news coverage when I'm reading an article for them. But my fear has always been, like in 2007, 2008, like everybody that I knew had like 3 houses. They had one house they lived in, one house they were fixing up to move into, and then one house they were going to flip for a profit. And then when things ground to a halt, they didn't have any money to fix any of them, and they were living in a terrible house because they hadn't worked on that one to fix it up yet, and they had no money. It was really weird. It says secondary home and investment property buyers are a rising share of home buyers in major cities, real estate data shows, and experts say the effect these deep-pocketed shoppers are having in housing markets are muscling out first-time home buyers. Well, there's no question that that was the case. BlackRock Financial had a company that they own that when I was listing houses this past summer, I would get a letter from them. It would be a purchase order. I mean, it would just be an offer to purchase. And it would be the minute that the house went active, and usually for asking. So on the first day I had a listing even up, I already had an offer at asking from BlackRock. Okay. So if anybody ever asked me, like, do you have an offer on the property in hand? I did. And it was not like just your mom and pop group. It says the share of homes sold to absentee owners, people in the market for properties that won't be their primary residence, has increased since 2020 in 228 out of 307 zip codes across 9 major metropolitan areas, from Seattle to Charlotte, North Carolina. NBC News analysis of data from real estate data provider Adam found. Through December of 2022, absentee sales in most of these areas remained higher than before the pandemic. With deep inventory shortages, experts say this has changed the rules of the game, propping up prices and keeping competition tight. Okay, so let's just go over that. Yes, 100%. But BlackRock and all those people have stopped buying. They stopped buying months ago. What's going on? Why do we still have, at least in St. Louis, why do we have this huge backlog of buyers? Absentee owners have cash. They have knowledge. They're not as concerned about what a home looks like if they're not living in it, says Tiffany Graham, a realtor with Keller Williams River Cities in Columbus, Georgia. Cash offers are typically a calling card of wealthy, seasoned buyers, experts say, often overlapping with investor and second home buyer preference. So I would say that if you like, oh boy, I got another gnat. So I would say that so an unsophisticated investor in this market will come at me and say, I have an all cash offer. And you say, okay. And then they come and try and buy a house for like 10% below ask in this market. And I'm like, well, that's not going to do it. They're like, well, you know, that's the best offer you're going to get. It's all cash. And I'm like, well, I've already got 3 offers in hand that are $40,000 over asking. And they're not cash, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to get it financed because I've looked around in the neighborhood and I can see that it's going to appraise. And the people can put in an appraisal insurance that says, look, as long as it appraised for X, we'll pay the difference. Anyway, we have some stat in our reports that 75% of all investor purchases are done with cash, says Sher Barkari, the senior economist at Redfin. Well, that's not unusual. The reason why you would go all cash is because you don't want an appraisal or you're worried about appraisal. That's why you would take one as a seller. but there's no reason to worry about appraisal right now. It says Ryan Pavlich, a marketing analyst in San Antonio, spent 18 months trying to buy a house beginning in 2018. Pavlich, 29, said he placed offers on 9 homes, including a 3-bedroom starter home with a new fence that he offered $5,000 above asking price. Well, he only offered $5,000 above asking price for it. That was his problem. Did he not see, did his real estate agent not see how bad it was? I mean, seriously, when we're going $100,000 over asking and you're at 5, you're not going to win. He was beating on all of them. Each time we lost, the common denominator was cash. That's not true. If I'm an agent, here's what happens. I had a house that I listed in July. We had 25 or 30 offers, okay, on the house. We had 4 offers that were the exact same price, and then we had 4 offers that were below, and we're talking 45, 50,000 over asking. And so when we picked one, wasn't the highest one, by the way, it was the strongest one. When we picked it, I just sent an email to everybody and I said, look, sorry, you know what the market's doing right now. We took another offer. I didn't say it's all cash, but I wouldn't be surprised if people thought that it was all cash offer. I don't think it was an all cash offer. Anyway, so I've had buyers say oh, I can't compete with all cash. Well, you just have to figure it out. There's ways to do it. Don't feel bad. You can do it. That's not why you're losing. You're losing most likely because you're honestly, if you're right up at your credit level, say you can afford a $300,000 home and you've got a pre-approval, you probably need to be down in the 240s, 230s asking price when the house comes on market so that you have a chance to bid, 260, 270. You're not going to win at, you're not going to win if you have a $300,000 approval and you're looking at houses for 300. Not going to work. In each of the 9 metro areas NBC analyzed, Atlanta, Austin, Baltimore, Charlotte, Detroit, Miami, Phoenix, San Antonio, and Seattle, a larger share of cash sales went to absentee owners. In San Antonio, 82% of absentee purchases have been made in cash since 2018 compared to 52% of owner-occupied sales. Now, if you go this was written in, I think, February. If you go and you fast forward the numbers, certainly in Phoenix, that was where Zillow and Open Door and OfferPad and Redfin offers, they were just all there. So I suspect their numbers went down. Also the same thing with places in Florida. They weren't here very much. We still have Open Door, but they just not the presence that they were in these other places. It says Pavlik said he watched his sold homes he had bid on resurfaced as rentals. Yes. My fiance's parents sold their home to Zillow. We saw it for rent less than a month later. That's where it got bad. Absentee buying increased in 40 out of 55 San Antonio zip codes with measurable buyer activity. Often the greatest increases occurred in entry-level priced areas. Most of the homes Pavlich looked at were in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, a category home that is quickly disappearing. In 2019, 52% of new homes sold in the South were priced under $300,000. And then by 2022, that figure was 13%. Yes, this is an affordability problem. In Bexar County's Texas 78250 zip code, where Pavlich searched and where median home price is $236,000, the share of absentee sales nearly doubled. It increased from 19% in the 2 years before March of 2020 to 34.6% at the time since. Across San Antonio, the 10 zip codes with the largest increases in absentee purchases had median sale prices ranging from the mid-100s to the lower 300,000. It says, while Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell expected a reset of the housing market, these decreases have not materialized. Instead, aspiring homeowners face continued high housing prices on top of high interest in mortgage rates. And so my question to Jerome Powell is, why do you think that the housing market would go down? Who's accepting less for a property? That's the real issue. Who wants to get out of a property so bad that they're willing to take less for it? It says for wealthier cash holding buyers, mortgage rates may be a boon. The mortgage, I don't know. So I have a lady that's in the $800,000 price range, and she would buy the house in cash, and she goes and looks from time to time, and she's looking for something very specific, and she's not interested in playing any games. Like, she can just write the check, and she's waiting. And I mean, she's just basically in baseball, she's waiting for her pitch, and she's going to hit it out of the park whenever she sees it. The market to her doesn't really matter. It's the house that she wants, and she'll buy it. I don't think that mortgage rates rising, even if they lower the prices, for her, she's not playing the same game. She's not on the same field that we are. The mortgage rate changes slowed the market and created a window for buyers already there, and such mom and pop outfits looking to buy a rental property. So that didn't happen here so much. And as increased mortgage rates swept competition out of the market, those buyers continue to make the same offers. Graham, the Georgia realtor, said, look, what happened here was we had buyers were finally able to buy homes, okay? And then the market ramped back up again. And that's all honestly, it's inventory related. I mean, some of the houses that I see, the prices being paid are just garbage. Garbage. For some, the pressure has been too much. Hannah Quinn, a stylist at Madewell in Nashville, spent 4 months looking for a house in 2022 before giving up and deciding to rent. You know, that's your own fault. The housing, anytime, no matter what, housing is a journey. It's a hunt. You're hunting for a house. You have to treat it that way. 4 months, not going to do it in this market. I've seen out-of-town buyers, out-of-town investors, Airbnb owners, people who moved out of the city but wanted to keep a property on the side for passive income. It's so cutthroat that buying a home is not on my radar anymore. At some point, I just need a place to live. I get that sentiment, and I worry about people. But going back and buying or going back and renting isn't necessarily going to work, if that makes any sense. I mean, you're still going to be paying out the wazoo. I mean, I could totally understand if you were in a situation where you could go rent something and you could get like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental for under $1,000 in a nice part of town. Man, take it and just wait until the market changes. But that's not what we saw. I mean, we saw that same rental going, $1,400, $1,500 here. That's ridiculous. Let me know what you think in the comments or the chat. This is from ABC News, it says, despite market slump, high rates dim home buyer affordability. This was written on March 14th. Now, look, I'm telling you, I work in the business every day in St. Louis. There's not a market slump occurring in St. Louis. I mean, it's ridiculous. The inventory has gone down, which statistically shows that the number of houses, year over year has gone down. But if you look at the price, it's still higher, about 4% over last year. I reject the notion that in St. Louis there's a market slump right this moment. It says homeownership is likely to remain a pipe dream for many Americans this spring home buying season. This is out of Los Angeles. We read the first paragraph. The nation's worst housing slump, and I'm going to try and get rid of that there for you, make it easier. The nation's worst housing slump in nearly a decade. See, I mean, this is not the world I'm living in. In nearly a decade, stoked hope among prospective buyers that homes could be scooped up more easily. But while prices appear to have peaked last summer, they still ended 2022 higher than they were at the end of 2021, and the median home price has increased 42% since 2019. A series of interest rate increases by the Federal Reserve last year is making matters worse for homebuyers, pushing mortgage rates to their highest levels in 2 decades. What's happening, yes, is the prices are staying high, but the ability to buy them is even worse because mortgage rates are higher. The average long-term rate on a 30-year mortgage reached a 2-decade high of 7.08 in the fall. Rates eased in December and January, but have been climbing since early February. The average rate hit 6.73 last week, the highest level since early November. A year ago, it averaged 3.85%, and that was high. We could be at 3% or under for a while there. The rate translates into a roughly 49% increase in the monthly payment on a median-priced U.S. home than a year ago, said George Radio, senior economist at Realtor.com. For real estate markets, the rise in rates means higher mortgage payments, deepening the affordability challenge as we move into the crucial spring home buying season. Look, it wouldn't be so bad if the high interest rates were causing home prices to come down. That wouldn't be so bad. For affordability, I'm talking about. Like, I care about people. Like, I really want, if you want, to me, you're a young couple, you're starting your life, buying a home or you got a new job, you're a single fella, you got a new job, or lady, buying a home is optimism. You're looking forward to your life. You're buying something, you're going to call it your home. Like, you're invested in it. It's a good thing. It's an optimistic thing. And I like to be a part of that. That's part of the reason why I'm in the business. So I want to see that. Okay. On the home seller side, I like my sellers to make money. Don't get me wrong, but some of them are kind of greedy. I'm just going to say. For prospective buyers holding out for a meaningful dip in mortgage rates, they may be in for a long wait. Zillow recently polled 100 economists and real estate experts on their outlook for what the average rate on a 30-year mortgage will be by the end of this year, and the median forecast was 6%. I think you're wrong. See, this is the thing. I think you're missing what would help affordability, and that's lower home prices. Yes, asking for a lower mortgage rate would be great, but to get the lower mortgage rate, you have to have some significant issues with the market, like the financing in the United States. We don't really want that, even though it looks bad. Stronger than expected reports on the economy this year have fueled speculation that the Federal Reserve may have to keep pushing up its key borrowing rate to tame inflation, deepening the affordability challenge for would-be buyers like Joe Arndt in Ryerstown, Maryland. Like, look, we don't know what the Fed's going to come out and do. It's going to be fascinating. I argue that the Fed kind of caused this problem. Actually, 95% responsible for all of this. How could you not figure out that people would, when you had higher yields on safe treasuries, that people would pile into that for safety? Like, how did you not figure out that was going to be a problem? It blows my mind. The 28-year-old athletic trainer has been looking to buy a home in the Baltimore area for over a year, but hasn't found much he can afford with his $225,000 to $250,000 price range. That would be tough. He now feels shut out of the market. I thought that things would start to cool down a little bit more. Prices are still the same they were a year ago, if not a little higher. Yeah, absolutely. Another factor that may keep people out of the housing market is the fact that the amount of money a typical home buyer needs to earn in order to afford a house continues to climb. In the fourth quarter of last year, you had to make at least $80,142 a year to buy a home with the national median price of $325,000, according to an analysis by Adam, a real estate information company. That's nearly 36% increase from the same quarter in 2021. There's been a lot of people that felt very wealthy, and then they go to buy a house and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't afford this." The analysis, which is based on data from 581 counties, defines an affordable home purchase as a transaction that includes a 20% down payment and a monthly cost for the mortgage payment, property taxes, and insurance that doesn't exceed 28% of the buyer's annual income. One market shift that could help make homes more affordable is a significant increase in homes for sale. Nationally, there are more available homes now than a year ago, and that's likely to increase in the coming weeks, as traditionally more homes hit the market in the spring months. That did not happen here. The number of homes for sale rose for the first time in 5 months in January, up to 980,000, up 15.3% from a year earlier. According to the National Association of Realtors, that amounts to 2.9% supply, 2.9 month supply of the current sales pace, better than January of last year. But it's still far from the 5 to 6 month supply that reflects a more balanced market between buyers and sellers. And the prospects for a bigger spike in supply are slim, given that new construction hasn't kept up pace with demand after years of underbuilding following the housing crash in 2008. At the same time, most homeowners with a mortgage have locked in ultra low rates over the years and have less financial incentive to sell. I don't know. I mean, we read that tweet. There's supposed to be a ton of construction, ton of new properties coming online. It's not all bad news for buyers. It's pretty bad. The bidding wars that led to homes often selling for well above asking price a year ago are less common as higher mortgage rates have forced some buyers out of the market, and data shows sellers are more willing to lower their asking price than they were a year ago. Sabit Harakabaptai and his fiancée, Sierra McNeely, were worried about higher borrowing costs would hamper their bid to become homeowners, but the couple who lives in the Cleveland suburb of Strongsville were able to find a house they could afford. Well, that's nice. The couple got a 2-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house for around $230,000 or $15,000 below asking price, and financed the purchase with a 30-year mortgage with a fixed rate of 5.75%. The seller also kicked in $10,000 towards their closing cost. Man, that was a bad house. We're definitely going to refinance at some point, Harabaktagi said, but it seems like the way it worked out, we got a pretty good amount of seller concessions. For buyers like them who can make the home buying math work, some have some trends in their favor. For one, homes are taking longer to sell. That's always been a ridiculous. Like, days on market is fine, but like, don't get me started. On average, homes sold in 33 days of hitting the market in January, up from 19 days a year earlier. That's pushing some sellers to lower prices, which why would they? If you're in St. Louis right now, why are you lowering your price? In January, about 190,000 homes on the market. By the way, there's a guy right now, a very wiry, old veteran real estate agent that sells many houses a year. He's got a house that's worth probably $300,000. It's probably going to sell for $300,000. He's got it priced at $225,000. Offers due by Monday at noon. He knows full well what he's doing. He knows full well what he's doing. People are going to go there and say, "Oh my God, we can buy this for $225,000," and their agent's going to look at them and say, "Like, yeah, let's put an offer at $225,000," and then they're going to be shocked. They're going to be shocked when the house sells for $300,000 or more. And you say, "John, why wouldn't you be shocked?" It's because I know the area very, very well, and I know what sells there and how much it sells for. Always have. It's close to my house. So anyway. It says that's pushing some sellers to lower prices. In January, about 190,000 homes on the market had their price reduced. But that's across the United States. That's not that many. Money buyers are also increasingly opting for a mortgage rate buy-down, which lowers the rate on their home loan for a few years or the life of the loan and thus reduces the home buyer's overall borrowing costs. In exchange, buyers pay fees as part of their closing costs to cover the rate buy-down. We have that here, but it's not the amount that you could get on the rate buy down isn't that much to make it worthwhile. You better off refinancing down the road. You're still gonna have to pay to refinance. Some sellers are even offering to cover those closing costs for a buyer to get the deal done, which again isn't happening here. Scott Collett, an account manager in Tampa, Florida, recently negotiated a seller paid mortgage rate buy down to close the deal on a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a pool. The property, which had been on the market for nearly a year, was reduced from $495,000 to $419,000. Okay, so they really missed on the market. I basically offered what they were asking at that point in time, and as they paid all the closing costs, inspection fees, and everything. The rate on his 30-year loan dropped from 6.25 to 5.26, an improvement, but still higher than a year ago when rates averaged below 4%. For College, it was worth it. My thought was if I had a higher interest rate, I'd pay less for the house, but I could also refinance. That's right. Get yourself into the house right now and then refinance later, hoping that the value of your house doesn't crater. Last article. I've never seen this put in the print before, but I've felt this way for a long time. CEO says there's a false assumption that people like commuting into a business hub. They don't. It's a complete waste of time and money. I'll tell you a story. Here, I'm going to even go this way. I'm going to go to here. Let me tell you a story about John Schink graduating college in 2001, I think. Graduated college, lived at my parents' house, had a job that was roughly 40 minutes from my house at rush hour. My job started right during rush hour and ended right during rush hour. I would drive to work and cry, literally a man crying, because bumper to bumper traffic for 40 minutes every day just to get to a shitty job that I didn't like. And then knowing I was going to have to come home and fight the same thing every day for the rest of my life made me cry. I just could not handle it. Okay. And you say, John, well, obviously you couldn't handle it because now you have your own business. You have your own brokerage. You're doing your thing. It's clear that you could not have done that. And it's like, well, it wasn't clear to me because my parents went to work every day at a set time at rush hour and they seemed to be okay with it. But again, now I'm to their age when they were doing this. And I'm telling you, I couldn't handle it. I hated it. In fact, I often looked like for new jobs, I would not want to work in like I don't want to work in downtown St. Louis. I have no desire to fight the traffic to get to downtown St. Louis. None. So anyway, that's my story. Let's continue. While major companies like Meta, Amazon, and Google continue to assess remote work policies and office costs, one CEO isn't sugarcoating the way employees feel. There's this assumption that people like commuting into a central business district. Mark Dixon, CEO of flexible office company IWG, told CNBC they don't. It's a complete waste of time and money, and they don't want to do it. In fact, I do have a little sneaky secret for you. I know one developer in Denver, Colorado, very successful fellow. When he is doing a development for office space, he would often look for CEOs and where they lived, okay? And then he would pitch them on the idea that he would build them something within like a 5-minute drive of their house, wherever that was. And you know what? It worked. I mean, that makes you think, like, why do people put businesses where they do? It's probably because the CEO doesn't want to, drive too far. When companies get taken over or when companies get bought out or when new management comes in, are you surprised when businesses move? It shouldn't be, because that's what they're doing. As companies that went fully remote during the pandemic have begun to request workers return to the office, there's been conflict over in-person mandates. Starbucks corporate employees have recently pushed back against the company's return to the office policy, which requires working at least 3 days per week from the office. Amazon employees are divided on the company's mandate, which will require employees to go to the office at least 3 days a week starting in May. Deerwood Realty, I work out of my house. So Rich, if one of my renters wants to buy my house, they're in. No, you don't. You need to go to like Office Depot or Staples or something. And as long as you have a price that you guys can agree to, you can sign the paperwork together. You don't need a realtor. You do need some sort of contract so when you go to the title company, you can transfer the mortgage and the deed easier. But yeah, if one of the renters wants to buy your house, sell it to them. Go to Office Depot or Staples. You don't need a realtor. I wouldn't get a realtor. If you're on good terms, if you think it's going to be a good deal. If you don't, if you think it's going to be rocky, then you might want a realtor. But then you're going to have to pay for one. So, I hope that answers your question. It says, Dixon, who founded his flexible office company in 1989, told CNBC that he believes this resistance to return to office policies will create a shock for the commercial real estate industry, especially as major tech companies evaluate the cost of their office space. And yes, I have wondered about this. You've had 2 years of telling people not to come to the office, okay? You have these big buildings sitting in downtown metropolitan areas that's totally built for that one purpose. Who's going to release those? Amazon has done just that after laying off thousands of workers earlier this year. The tech company has paused construction on its second headquarters in Virginia. Google and Meta, which have both conducted layoffs over the past few months, have recently downsized their office footprints in cost-cutting measures. In February, Google asked some of its employees to share desks, leaving some office buildings empty. Meta decided against renewing its leasings on 2 New York office buildings that year. Dixon said he said these real estate reassessments can lead to opportunities, especially for companies like this. Now, look, you could argue, look, this guy has got a certain kind of business model, and he's going to obviously fight against the quote unquote norm. All I'm saying is I see it more the way he sees it. Like with telecommunications the way they are, real time, why do I need to be in an office? Why? I mean, as long as I can get along with my boss or my employees on Zoom, I'm good. I think the fear that I have is one that I would have in any business, and that's all of a sudden now you're all talking, all of a sudden now you're always in meetings on Zoom and you're not able to work. But that's a problem it's been that way for 100 years. So I don't think that's something that can't be overcome. He told CNBC that he envisions offices working like a network of petrol stations, affording workers the opportunity to work anywhere. Dixon's company, IWG, now has over 3,300 offices spanning over 120 countries, including, according to IWG's website, you can drive anywhere in the country. Work will be like that. You'll find places to work everywhere. We network them all together to make them easy to use. Well, that's shared office space, essentially. Nothing new. So on that, Rich, look at what happened in 2008. Look at what happened in 2009. Or look at what happened, I guess, in 2007. People were cheering. Like downtown Detroit was being built up through using their old commercial space into residential space. The problem with that, is the commercial tax rate to the city is so much higher than a residential rate. It's like, do you want an empty building that's commercial, or do you want a residential building that pays something? And that was the question that the industry was gone, though. And so that is really an issue. We have a building in St. Louis, the AT&T building, that they're supposed to be turning into a residential space. I don't think we should be cheering that industries don't need buildings anymore in major areas. I just think that it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. And I just cannot imagine going to work in an office building anymore. It just would drive me crazy. Anyway, look, we made it through another show. It's 10:30 Central Time. Thank you for commenting, Rich. Thank you for your comments earlier today. I'll get to them, respond soon. And look, just thanks. I will be around tomorrow, 9 o'clock. It might be a little late because I do have to show some houses, but should be 9 o'clock. And we'll talk about the real estate news of the day. With that, I'm headed out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening on the podcast, and I'll talk to you later.